Cities with the widest gender gap. So apparently Durham, North Carolina has way more females than males. This is looking like there's 2 women for every man in this county. There's got to be a really interesting explanation for that. Like an all-girls school or something? Wait, sorry, that's not Durham, North Carolina. This is Durham, North Carolina. This blue dot is actually a heavily male city. That's Fayetteville, North Carolina. Okay, maybe an all-boys school then. It appears most cities in California and just the West Coast in general are mostly male-dominated. I should add between the ages of 20 to 29 age group. Also, the bigger the dot, the more people they have. Overall, this is showing me way more women live on the East Coast than the West Coast. That's probably not exactly what I should take from this. There's just more of a difference in certain cities. My only theory for this, honestly, is because there's a lot more universities in this area. A lot of men aren't going to university anymore. There seems to also be way more cities with way more males specifically. Like, yeah, there are dots with more women, but it's not quite as intense. Like, these aren't really dark colors like we're seeing out of the dark blue. Also, the scale we're using at is really just between 45 and 55%. So it's not like insane. These places don't have like 75% men to women. It's still pretty close. The most similar countries to every nation, according to ChatGPT. So according to this AI, France is most like Spain, Italy is most like Spain, Portugal is most like Spain, but Spain is most like Portugal. So far, this is really geography based, I'm noticing. Russia is most like Ukraine. That's awkward. But Ukraine is most like Poland. Poland more like Czechoslovakia, and Czechoslovakia more like Slovakia. Okay, at least these two are corresponding. Did I say Czechoslovakia again? Sometimes it's easier just to combine it if I say it out loud. Belgium isn't on here, but the Netherlands, of course, they're most like Belgium. Germany's most like the Netherlands. I believe they're saying Switzerland here is most like Germany. That was the one I was most curious about because of how like strange Switzerland is. Greece is like Italy. Bulgaria is like Romania. Oh, Turkey. Okay, I don't know how they feel about this. And I guess it makes sense for the Nordic countries to be most like the middle Nordic country. Oh, I see. Luxembourg got Belgium, and Belgium did get the Netherlands. I feel like a lot of this stuff is things we should have already expected. Portugal is not a small country. Obviously, this is a propaganda poster from way back in the day, which is now pretty ironic because Portugal is quite a small country. But when you include their colonial empire they once had, yeah, they were pretty large. And it was mostly because of their African settlements in Angola, as well as Mozambique here. Of course, they still have their islands, but that's not really adding that much. It's just one of those maps that's kind of awkward now. I guess is the reason why so many times when referring to the language Portuguese, a lot of apps just use the Brazilian flag. It's so sad. Places where we dropped bombs on North Korea during the Korean War. Now, obviously, the Korean War took place back in the 1950s, and it was a pretty big back and forth for a few years there. During the Korean War, the US dropped over 600,000 bombs on North Korea. Obviously, this means all of their infrastructure was completely destroyed. I just want to know what was happening here. Oh wait, we actually just got the answer to that. When the Koreans moved way down towards the south part, we were probably trying to blow up a little bit. Look how close they got to beating out South Korea down here. So we dropped some on South Korea, but we didn't like completely destroy their infrastructure. Maybe we like knew we were eventually going to get that territory back. We didn't want to destroy it too bad. We were apparently blowing up boats, I think, out in the ocean too. Also, just look at that DMZ zone. You could literally see where the line was drawn. Obviously, this map is also going to reflect population density in a way. This is very mountainous terrain that North Korea has. Not a lot of people live there. These are some interesting dots. This reminds me that you just can't win a war through only air supremacy. We clearly did not learn that lesson during the 50s and the Korean War because we were going to make that same mistake during the Vietnam War. Every American metro area with a population over 1 million overlapped with a highway map. This definitely seems to be one of those chicken or egg situations. What came first? Well, actually, we could probably figure that out just knowing the expansion history of the US. When it comes to the East Coast, more than likely the settlement came first, then we built the highway after. But definitely this stuff for the West Coast, more than likely we built the highway and then the settlement. Well, actually, that might not necessarily be true either, but it maybe is more likely. I mean, that's definitely the case for a lot of small towns along the highway. When it comes to the bigger ones, maybe not. But yeah, this should not be surprising at all that we build highways where people are. I don't know why we would do it any other way. Speaking of which, most popular car model in the US. For most of the heart of the country, it's mainly the F series, or basically like the Ford F-150, that whole thing, Ford. So a lot of trucks. We got the Nissan Altima in Nevada. I just had to make sure I did that right. It's the Nissan, right? Yeah. There's the Honda Civic in California. Also the Honda Accord out of Oregon and Washington. Already a pretty extreme difference from the West Coast to all the blue states. We're basically talking sedan versus truck here. More Altimas in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. So the South is somewhat divided on this topic. I'm actually surprised the Deep South doesn't have more trucks. There's the Corolla in Florida, and a lot more Accords out this way. Trucks extend through Kentucky and West Virginia. This is basically a city versus rural map if you really think about it. Interesting that Maine is using the truck Silverado. Also, Minnesota being different with the Impala. Not surprised at all to see these two divided like that too. Countries which have territorial disputes with China, and unsurprisingly, there is a lot of them. You know what? Actually, I'm a little bit surprised there's not even more. It is funny that China has a territorial dispute with countries so far away like Malaysia and Indonesia, even Singapore technically. In a way, doesn't China kind of have a territorial dispute with South Korea because they think it should be all North Korea? I guess because China's not involved, that's why it's not being included. Funny enough, China does not technically have a territorial dispute with Russia at the moment, but they could if they wanted. It wasn't that long ago China actually looked like this. They had a lot of this Russian land. There's actually a lot of ethnic Chinese people that still live in this part of Russia today. So if they ever wanted, they totally could start something with Russia. They probably don't want to though. There's only one country on this list where they have both a land and sea territorial dispute. That's Vietnam. So something to do with up here. Obviously, all of these countries have territorial disputes because of the South China Sea. The green countries have just land disputes though. So unsurprisingly, if you're an island, you probably have a sea dispute. Interesting that they have no disputes with Central Asia at all. They're all pretty chill. Talk about it's complicated situation. Largest aging populations around the world. This is percentages of countries with population over 65. So Estonia starts us off at 20%, then there's Slovenia. There's also France, Latvia, and Germany. Germany's on their way to 22% actually. There's Portugal and Greece. Wow, there's a lot of European countries on this list. Finland and Italy. I think we all know by now, no one is even close to as bad as Japan. Almost 30% of all Japanese people are over the age of 65. Is that what I'm getting here? That is insane. Yeah, they are incredibly close to 1/3 of their entire country being retirement age. No wonder Japan's always the butt of all these jokes. Japan's population fell by almost 1 million over the previous year. Now, technically, Japan only has 35 million people living over that age bracket. It's just high considering the rest of their country, but the US has 52 million. China has 166 million, but China also has like 1 billion population, so the percentage is not that high. I know we're focusing on Japan here, but the Europeans also have a pretty big problem. The global beer consumption, which country drinks the most? It's actually China, which shouldn't be that surprising. This infographic is actually extremely misleading because this isn't by percentage. Even though China's population outnumbers us like 1 to 4, the US is still really, really close. It means we have a lot of drinkers here. But China has remained the largest beer consuming country for the last 19 years. But Brazil is also kind of up there with only about 230 million people living in this country. They're drinking a lot. And obviously a place like Germany is going to be punching way above their weight. Pretty nice numbers for less than 100 million people living in this country. Where's Czechia at? I know they also love beer. Mexico also pretty high. India has over 1 billion people, yet they're not big beer drinkers. Neither am I, India. Just haven't ever been manly enough to like beer. And here's the rest of the world. Oh, here's Czechia. Known for inexpensive beer. Per capita, this country is winning. And they've won 29 years in a row. And it's not even close. That is insane. So again, the thing that keeps these countries off the list is they just don't have enough people. If they had more people, they would dominate these categories. I'm actually so shocked by that bar graph. It's crazy. How do you drink that much? Speaking of which, countries might want to look into this. Countries around the world and their favorite hangover helper. So in the US, it's salty, greasy, fatty foods. I don't really know why. I feel like this shouldn't work, but it has worked for me in the past. I don't know. In the UK, of course, it's similar, the full English breakfast. In Turkey, it's this dish, which is toasted bread made from lamb intestines. Interesting. There's Thailand broad rice noodles. I love having like pho or noodles for after a hangover. I feel like that works the best. Russia has pickle juice. That is so random, Russia. It's like the weird outlier on this. In Korea, it's this soup, which is translated to soup to remove hangover. Doesn't get more straightforward than that. In Italy, it's spicy foods. In Japan, they also have a soup. I'm noticing a very similar thing with like the UK, Ireland, USA. In Denmark, it's known as a fix-it brewster or a recovery beer. That does not. Denmark, someone needs to check on Denmark. And in Bolivia, it's a spicy yellow chili. I would like to try that. Metro areas in the US where more than 5% of the population uses public transit to get to work. Obviously, our map is not that impressive. I mean, if you're coming from anywhere in Europe, certain places in Asia, the crazy thing is these percentages really aren't even that high. We're taking 5%. Just if 5% of the people live in the city and take public transit, you're being included. So all of this gray means that less than 5% of the people take the public transit in the US, in that city, to their job. So orange really isn't even that impressive, but it's anywhere between 5 to 10%. In the San Francisco area, this is anywhere between 10 to 20%. I'm actually pretty surprised about some of this. This area of San Francisco, not shocked, but like more outside, yeah, this is a little bit more surprising. I've been to Seattle, they've got pretty good public transit, and there's also the Boston area. But of course, no one beats New York. This is over 30% of the population takes public transit. I'm actually surprised it's only 30. I would say it's like, I thought it'd be like 50, to be honest. I guess it could be. New York is very far ahead of all these other places, though, that's for sure. These are always such crazy maps to review. I didn't even realize how beautiful public transit was until I started coming like here to Europe. I'm in Spain right now. Specifically Barcelona. They've got really good public transit. Surprisingly, recently invented foods. These are all foods invented after World War II. To start things off, we have Mexico with nachos. That was apparently created in 1940. I mean, when were chips created, though? That's the big question. I guess that's what this all comes down to. There's apple crumble out of the UK, specifically this type of spaghetti out of Italy, currywurst from Germany, butter chicken in India, as well as Mongolian barbecue. Interesting that Mongolian barbecue came from Taiwan. But yeah, barbecue probably is the thing that obviously made that be invented after WW2. Wait, what is this, Spain? I need to try that. A lot of things out of the UK, strangely. Does this contribute to the British have bad food memes? Maybe those memes are actually out of date. All those memes were made before World War II. Tiramisu is really that young? Not surprised that Canada came up with this travesty so recently. 1962 is actually still older than I thought. It seems just like a horrific combination they came up with last year. Definitely some of these things on this list should not be that surprising. Bubble tea, pretty recent. Blended iced coffee as well. This reminds me of the caveman diet. Basically, if your great-great-grandma didn't know what that food was, to not eat it, and I guess it's safe to say all of our great-great-grandmas probably wouldn't know what this food is. I'm still gonna eat this stuff though, I'll be honest. Against which country did these countries have their worst football loss in? Or soccer, basically. So for a lot of South America, their worst soccer game ever was against Brazil, and they were losing by over 20 points. These are crazy numbers. I've never seen a soccer game end with 31-0. I mean, Brazil is even kicking our butt. 17? That's crazy for Mexico. I thought they were better than that. Then again, Mexico also handing out a lot of L's to other countries, to Cuba specifically, -13, and Costa Rica put up 13 over Cuba. Mexico gave -17 to Jamaica. That's funny to see the Dominican Republic's rival Haiti just kill them like that. Yeah, Mexico has destroyed a lot of Central American places, but I am surprised to see Costa Rica pop up so much. How good is Costa Rica in their soccer? Uruguay is probably not a big fan of Argentina putting up 35. Argentina and Brazil have both scored over 37 goals in one game against Paraguay. This is like that, the Triple Alliance War when 90% of the population was destroyed in Paraguay. They're continuing that tradition to this day just in soccer. 55 points. Chile got beat by 55. That's what? Meanwhile, the most hilarious thing on this list, Brazil, their worst loss was to Norway, where they got 2 goals over them. Meanwhile, England and the Netherlands scored up more than 3 against Argentina. That's the most ever. That's the worst loss ever for them. Meanwhile, we have countries in the 30s up here. They really take their soccer seriously. And big thanks to my patrons.
Destiny Ducker, the modern cartographer.
Sebi, if you hear this, I love
to
you.
Drew now.
I am the kidnapper.
aPhatNarwhal, Carmel
since no one pays
InquisitorXarius,
KirinoIsBestGirl,
Luxembourg 5610,
Robert
RyeThePie,
TheGreatRalphy,
the Mexican
Wicked
760,
Hamster,
JohnDenver,
GoodOldRyah,
and
Dad,
Jack Traven's annoying friend.
And why am I doing this?